Genetic variant patterns cause scoliosis. Functional genomic variant patterns in Caucasian patients diagnosed with idiopathic scoliosis, a controlled observational study, by Morningstar and colleagues, 2019. What is this study about? This research looked at the genetics of teenage scoliosis. Scoliosis is when someone's spine curves to one side without a known cause. That's called idiopathic scoliosis, and it often starts in kids aged 10 to 18. We know that genes probably play a role, but scientists still don't understand exactly how. Many past studies focused on small DNA changes called SNPs, or single nucleotide polymorphisms, in individual genes. But that approach hasn't been easy to use in clinics. So, this study tried something new. Instead of looking at one mutation at a time, it grouped SNPs by whether they affect a common function, like how cells use energy or make proteins. The idea is that groups of genetic changes working together might explain why scoliosis happens or gets worse. How the study was done. The researchers gathered two groups of people: Caucasian adolescents with idiopathic scoliosis, Caucasian teens without scoliosis. They compared how many and what types of functional SNP groups each person had. They looked across 131 different groups, pathways, or functions to see if any differed significantly between the scoliosis group and the non-scoliosis group. What they found: of the 131 functional SNP groups they checked, 19 stood out. They were significantly different between the two groups. This means scoliosis patients had more of those 19 genetic variant groups compared to controls. Then, the researchers went a step further. Among the scoliosis patients, they compared teens whose spinal curvature had become severe, over 50 degrees, which often leads to surgery, with those whose curves stayed milder. They found that the teens with more severe curves had a higher average number of those 19 significant SNP groups. What this means. Here's what the results suggest. Certain genetic patterns, groups of SNPs, are more common in teens with scoliosis than in those without it. Teens whose curves become large, over 50 degrees, tend to have more of these specific genetic patterns than teens whose curves stay smaller. In simple terms, it may not be one single gene causing scoliosis. It might be that having several small genetic variations that affect the same biological function increases the risk, and even influences how severe the spine curve becomes. Why this study matters. Better understanding of genetics. By looking at groups of SNPs, not just single SNPs, researchers can better imagine how genes work together to affect scoliosis risk and progression. Possible future tests. If we can confirm which functional SNP groups matter most, someday doctors might use genetic screening to predict whether a child's curve might worsen, and plan care more effectively early on. Deepens understanding of scoliosis. It shows that the disease is complex and multifactorial, meaning many small genetic factors combine to shape what happens. Things to keep in mind. This study focused only on Caucasian teens, so we don't know if these genetic patterns are the same in other groups. What exactly those 19 functional groups do wasn't explained in detail, which means we still don't know which types of functions, like bone metabolism or nerve signaling, were involved. The study shows an association, not cause-effect proof. That means these genetic patterns go along with more severe scoliosis, but we can't say for sure they cause it. Bigger picture. What is AIS and how is genetics involved? To understand why this study matters, it's helpful to know a bit more about AIS. AIS affects about 2 to 4% of teens, mostly girls. It's usually detected by physical checkups or when a parent notices uneven shoulders or hips. Sometimes the curve stays small and doesn't trouble daily life. Other times it grows and needs a brace or surgery. Past research shows some genes, like MTHFR, COMT, MAOA, and others, seem to increase the chance of scoliosis. But pinpointing a single scoliosis gene has not worked. Scoliosis seems to result from many small genetic factors rather than one big one. This new study fits into that bigger picture by grouping genes functionally. Summary in simple terms. What they did. Compared genetic patterns, grouped by function, in teens with and without scoliosis. What they found. Out of over 130 groups, 19 were significantly more common in scoliosis patients. Even more, teens with curves over 50 degrees had more of those variant groups than those with smaller curves. What it means. Suggests that not single mutations, but groups of small genetic changes in certain functions may help explain scoliosis and its severity. Why it matters. Could lead to new ways to predict progression and personalized care, but more studies are needed across different ethnic groups. This study offers a promising new approach to understanding the genetics behind idiopathic scoliosis. It shows that looking at groups of related genetic changes could be more useful than looking at one gene at a time. Still, it's just a first step. More research is needed to figure out exactly which functions these SNP groups involve and whether the same patterns appear in teens from other backgrounds. Let me know if you'd like help explaining what SNPs are or how genetic research can actually help doctors and families in real life.